Hey everybody, welcome back to the How Did It Happen podcast. I'm your host, Mike Malatesta. I'm an entrepreneur who's founded and led 2 8-figure companies. I'm also an investor, author, speaker, and lifetime learner. On this podcast, I explore stories of success in every episode and with every guest. What it means, why it's important, and of course, how it happens. You can subscribe, connect, and learn more about me at mikemalatesta.com. Today, I'm fulfilling my promise to you with another amazing success story. Aaron Golub joins me on the show today. Aaron became the first legally blind athlete to play football in a Division I game when he was at Tulane University. He's a long snapper, and in addition to playing at Tulane, he also became an NFL free agent, believe it or not. In addition, Aaron is a financial planner, he's a keynote speaker, a podcaster, and a person out to change the world. Hey, Aaron, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So I met Aaron through Jeff Lopes, and Jeff has a great podcast called Jeff Knows Inc., I believe is what it is. And Aaron actually has a great podcast called Blind Ambition, which I've listened to several times, and I think he gets really great guests. He's doing a really, really super fabulous job with it. So check that out, Blind Ambition. But anyway, Jeff and I got connected, and then he was asking me, if I wanted anyone from his show to come on mine, and the first person that he thought of was Aaron. And as soon as I heard Aaron's story, and then had the opportunity to talk to him briefly last week, and he was willing, I was like, yeah, let's get on, let's share this story. So Aaron, thank you so much for joining me. I start every one of my podcasts with the same simple question: how did it happen for you?
Yeah, I think it was just making the choice to succeed and to achieve things that are greater than myself. I decided at a young age that I never wanted to be average. I never wanted to be normal. A little background on myself. I became the first legally blind Division I athlete to play in a game when I played football at Tulane University. Went on to become a team captain, then an NFL free agent, and now I'm an entrepreneur and a speaker. And, it was making that choice to do whatever I could to be one of the top performers in everything that I go after.
And when was it that you sort of made this choice to succeed or not want to be average? Do you remember when that started and why?
Yeah, it was sophomore year of high school. I was probably 15, and I, wanted to start in varsity. I wanted to play in college. I wanted to play Division I football. And at that time, I was a third string junior varsity offensive defensive lineman, and I was sick of it. I wanted to accomplish things that were greater. And, from then it was a couple things. Making the decision of playing at the positions that I am right now. There's no way I could play Division I sports. And I had to find the best fit for me. And so I found long snapping. And I said, if I get good enough at this, then I might have an opportunity. And the second factor was I need to work 10 times harder than everyone else to be as good as them. And because of that, I had to do whatever it took. And that was for me waking up at 5 a.m. every day, practicing long snapping, going to school, going to practice, lifting weights, going home, doing homework, repeating every single day for the next several years because I knew what I had to do to accomplish my goals.
And when did it, well, let me go back first to when you started playing. So as I think I read, you started playing football in 7th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I, for 5 or 6 years, I was a 7th and 8th grade football coach. So I'm wondering a couple of things. One, what was it like for your family to hear Aaron say, oh, by the way, I think I want to go out and play football? Because you've been blind or legally blind since birth, right? So It's not like something that developed along the way. And then second, I guess, how were you received? Did they know what to do with you?
Yeah, no, I mean, first off, obviously my parents were nervous, but, I played sports my entire life, whether it be, basketball, baseball, street hockey, like whatever. I mean, I wasn't necessarily good at any of them, but I played tons of sports my entire life. And, obviously football's different. It's contact, but, my parents were willing to let me play. And, I wasn't going to be a wide receiver and running down the field and catching a ball, and I just couldn't see it. But for me, at first, I started at offense and defensive line is where we found a good fit for me. And it didn't matter if I was good or not, because in 7th and 8th grade, it's about learning the game, being a part of a team, and developing the skills. Obviously you want to start and you want to play, but realistically, it's about improving and learning and being a part of that team. And so, I think my coaches were willing to work with me. They were willing to do whatever they could to help me be a part of that and get better. And, that's what it was like at that age. And I think that's what it's like for everyone at that age.
And yeah, I think that's a great statement, because a lot of kids at that age, at least in my experience, that come to play football, they're not really sure about anything. They're not sure whether they want to play. They're not sure whether they want to get hit. They're not sure whether they want to do the conditioning. They're not sure, and on and on and on and on. These things they're not sure about. So I like the way you drew the distinction to, that's not really different no matter.
Yeah. I mean, look, you get the occasional kid and you see this. I'm sure I had a lot of friends who I played with at Tulane who were in the circumstance where you get like an 8th grader who's on varsity or something, but most of the time that doesn't happen. And because of that, it's really about learning the game at that age.
And so by the time you got to your sophomore year, when did it become clear, or how did it become clear to you? And maybe it was being a backup on the JV, how did it become clear to you that you want to continue to play this game, but you're not going to be able to play it or have your best chance unless you focused like you ended up doing on long snapping? And for those of you who don't know what long snapping is, maybe you should explain that as well.
Yeah. First off, long snapping, I'm the guy on punts and field goals who would throw the ball between my legs back to the punter or to the holder on field goals, and then I'd have to block the person in front of me. But I think I just wanted to. I realized that I loved playing, and I wouldn't have been able to do it in my current situation. And I was sick of not actually playing. And I think that I had that internal drive to say, I know what I can do. I know I want to play. So let's just go out there and figure it out and force myself to be able to play, essentially.
Okay. And when you made that decision, had you been long snapping already, or was this something that you decided?
No, I never had done it before.
Okay.
I was a center and defensive tackle, but I didn't do long snapping for punts or field goals. And so it was something where I had to, immediately start learning.
And how did you get started with it? Because again, in my experience, a lot of coaches at that level, high school level, they kind of expect somebody to come along and be able to long snap, as opposed to being able to teach somebody to long snap. So I'm wondering, maybe that wasn't your experience. I don't know.
No, I didn't rely on my coaches at all in high school.
Okay.
They, great in some ways, but in a lot of ways, but for teaching me how to do that wasn't who I went to. And so my dad and I first off practiced every single day. He would come with me at 5 a.m. every single morning, and we practiced snapping. So a lot of props to him. But we went to camps called Rubio long snapping, and I learned from them and was able to, in between those camps, I didn't go them, every week. Obviously, it was a couple times a year I would go, and in between them, I would practice with my dad. But those were about developing and then getting nationally ranked. And eventually I worked my way up the rankings, and that's really how I got noticed for college.
I felt really inadequate or dumb when I was doing the research for this, and I read about the Rubio camp, because I'm very familiar with receiver camps and quarterback camps and all these different types of specialty camps, but I was not even aware there was a long snapping camp.
Yeah, no, it's kicking, punting, and long snapping. So it's partnered with Chris Saylor Kicking, who does the kicking and punting, and he does the long snapping, and it's phenomenal. It's by the time I graduated, I think I was like, I don't remember my ranking. I know I was number 1 in Massachusetts. I was in the top 20 or 30 in the country, but it was phenomenal. I mean, I learned a ton. Great atmosphere. It was a really important and a great place for me to learn.
And was the Rubio camp a traveling camp that came to the Boston area or wherever you were growing up?
It was all over the country. So, there was one in Boston I went to. There were several other places in the country I went to. It was different areas.
So what was it like when you showed up at those camps? Because I'm thinking that, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking that the people who came there would think they had a big advantage over you, but and I don't know, what was it like when you first showed up there?
The first time I went to a camp, I was horrible. I thought I was going to be good, and I was terrible. There's still video online somewhere of me snapping a ball way over a punter's head there. And from there, it was, okay, I got to work even harder and figure it out. And, it's about improving every single time. And every time I went back, I got ranked higher and higher and higher until eventually I was one of the top kids at the camps that I went to. And, that's really how I got noticed and how I developed. And it's really about whether you're at a camp like that, whether you're on a team, whether you're in a company, whether you're in any situation, it's about earning respect. And the only way to earn respect is to put in the work when no one else is looking. And so, if I go to a camp and then 6 months later I go back and I'm barely any better, or I'm still just the same, obviously I'm not going to earn anyone's respect, or I'm not going to be thought of any differently because I didn't get better. But if I go back 6 months later and I'm 100 times better and my snaps are really much better, of course I'm going to earn people's respect because I clearly put in the work to get there.
Yeah. Okay. And when you first showed up, you said you expected to be good. Was that because of the work that you'd been doing with your dad every morning?
I thought I was going to be good, or I'd put in a lot of work, and I had, but I think I just didn't realize how tough the rest of the competition was, or how good a lot of the other people were. And, that's fine. But I quickly learned that I need to work even harder and do whatever else I could to get there.
And just to give people a sense of what getting better at that means for anybody, is it timed, the amount of time it takes for the ball to get back, or what are the metrics that are used for you to sort of rank yourself or be ranked?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's part of it's the speed of the snap, so how fast it can go from you to the punter. Part of a lot of it's the accuracy. Can you put it in the same spot 10 snaps in a row, or is every snap a different part of the punter? Part of it's your ability to block, the size of the long snapper. There's a whole different, a lot of different aspects to it, but a lot of the main ones are the accuracy and the speed of the ball.
And is it more difficult? And I'm sorry to ask you so many questions about it. I'm just curious. Is it more difficult to snap for an extra point than a punt, or is it the same, or?
Punts are definitely harder.
Harder because it's further
obviously,
back?
Yeah. Obviously when you get good at them, neither of them are hard. It's kind of like second nature. But, in the beginning, obviously, yeah, punts are harder.
Okay. I watched some videos of you doing it, and I thought to myself, again, I've coached, but we never really coached the long snapper. And I just from watching the video, I could tell how much technique there is about, like, the way the movement of the body backward when you snap it, and just all this other cool stuff that I had never really paid attention to. And you don't notice it in a game so much because they don't, have the camera on the long snapper specifically, usually, unless it goes over someone's head, and then they make a point of doing that. But okay, once you started long snapping, did you just focus on football at that point, because you had mentioned doing a lot of other sports? What were your other?
I didn't play any sports in high school besides football. I played a lot of other sports as a little kid, whether it be just like Little League baseball, or like played on my own, but nothing really competitive.
Okay. And what about the rest of your high school experience outside of football? So would you consider it you went to a regular high school, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, it was normal high school experience, same as anyone else. It was, no really different at all.
Yeah. Nice. So then you become really good, and you have an opportunity to be recruited at Division I schools, I think Illinois and Tulane, if I recall correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going through your mind, and what's going through their minds when you're talking to the coach? What kind of feedback are you getting? This is before you make a decision. What are you looking at from the university and the playing and all of that are going into your decision-making process, or theirs for that matter?
I guess to take a step back, yes, those are the two Division I schools I had offers from, but I contacted every single school in the country, and most schools had no interest, or said no, or didn't get back to me. And those were the ones that had some interest and were interested and wanted me to play there. And, it was about finding the school that was the best fit for me. And one of my coaches and someone who I look up to gave me some very good advice. And that was, if God forbid you get hurt or something happens, you can't play anymore, pick a school that you'd enjoy being a student at and you'd love to actually be at. And that was Tulane. And it was just a better fit for me, whether I was playing or not. And that's why I picked it.
Okay. And so tell me more about this, contacting every school. How did you contact them? What was your process? How did you?
It was like I was in business. Cold email, cold call, cold show up at some of the campuses. I was essentially prospecting them.
And were you one and done, Aaron, or were you multiple times? Or did you have like a tier one, tier two, tier three?
Think of it as a business. If you send someone who you want to work with an email and they don't respond, you're not going to just give up right there. You're going to send them 4 more emails over the next 7 months.
Right.
And if they don't respond after that, then you cross them off the list. But yeah, it was a lot of outreach. And when someone either said no or didn't respond a certain number of times, then I would, cross them off the list.
Okay. Well, I guess, did you look at, D2 or D3 schools, or were you just
not really.
D1?
I looked at a couple.
So that was your goal.
Okay. I looked at a couple because my dad told me to, just in case, you never know. And, from his perspective, that's good advice. But my perspective was, and honestly, I was very stubborn. I said, I want to play Division I football. I have no interest at any other level. And, there's nothing wrong with any other level. I just had no interest.
So if you hadn't found schools that would take you, you wouldn't have played, you're saying? Or you don't think you would?
I just had so much confidence that it didn't matter. My opinion is the best plan B is plan A. I never have a plan B to anything I do. I knew I'd figure it out. And that's what happened.
They call that burning the boats, right? So you don't, there's no temptation to look back.
Exactly.
You can only look
if you
forward.
Make a decision, just go with it.
And when you made your decision to go to Tulane, was it a definite that you were going to play, or what was the situation like?
Yeah, I was definitely, I had a definite spot in the team. I had no idea if I would ever be able to play or not. You have to earn your way to actually get playing time once you're there. And I went into it with that mentality of I was the bottom of the totem pole again, and I had to earn every second.
And did it feel like you were, an accepted part of the team from the time you showed up? What was the environment like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the greatest things about playing a college sport. You walk on a campus and you have a ton of other friends immediately. It was a great experience. We're all striving for a common goal and going through everything together. And so there was a great environment around me.
And what was the tipping point? What and when was the point where you not only knew you'd be on the team, but you'd be a contributor and a starter?
Yeah, during my sophomore year, I played for the first time. I had been putting in a lot of work. I knew my coaches had been noticing, and I knew that sooner or later I was going to get an opportunity. And then in a game, that we were, I think, up pretty big, my coach just said, you're going to do the rest of the second half snaps. And I did them. And that was the first time that I got on the field and was able to earn my spot.
And the teammate that was long snapping at the time, was he older, younger? What was the replacement sort of
at the time? It was older. It was the same thing with everyone else. It's if a backup quarterback is doing really well in practice and putting in a lot of time, if you're up by 30 points in the third quarter, you're probably going to give your backups an opportunity to show themselves and see what they can do. And that's what my opportunity was.
And it's also football is most sports are, but football is really good at, you really, it is a competition. The best player usually wins, right?
Absolutely.
So whether you've been on the team for 4 years or you're your first year player, nothing's written in stone. You're not guaranteed a spot. You have to compete for it. That's what I love about maybe a lot of sports are like that, but having been a coach, that's what I like. Football is where I focus too. So your next goal, I think, besides graduating, was to be in the NFL, or one of your next goals was to be in the NFL. When did that become a goal?
Yeah, when I was done playing my senior year, I wanted to keep going, and I trained for my pro day. I did my pro day, did very well, and talked to some teams, and it was going, but not moving along as quickly as I would have liked. With long snappers in the NFL, there's one per team, so there's 32 guys. There's not any backups, and because of that, if a guy doesn't get hurt or screw up, they're not going to replace them. And so it's a lot harder to get in as a long snapper or kicker than as an offensive lineman or a wide receiver. There's just less spots, and so it just wasn't going as quickly as I would have liked. And I had other opportunities that I wanted to pursue after football, anyways. And it wasn't quitting, in my opinion. It was taking a pivot and pursuing other dreams that I had.
And were you, I don't know, I was gonna ask, were you disappointed? But I think I know the answer to that. But so did, and it's probably not the case where you can just cold call, email everybody in the pros, right? You have to become like, how diligently did you go after it? I guess it was because you explained that your college thing was really diligent.
Yeah, it was a different kind of structure. I did my pro day and talked to teams after that, and kept in touch with a few people, but it's a very different process. You can't really go after them; they have to kind of come to you in certain extents. And I had some interactions, and I had other opportunities on the table that I wanted to go for, and that's what I did.
Okay. And outside of football, your college experience was, were you in a fraternity, or what was your life like outside of off the field?
So I didn't join a fraternity. It was just, I made the decision that it was going to be too much with football. But, I had a fantastic college experience, socially, in school, every aspect. It was amazing.
And the other opportunities that you had available to pursue, what were you? I know you went to school for business and finance, I think, or was that the two, business and finance?
Yeah. So right now I do a couple things. I work in finance. I can't really get too much into that because of compliance reasons, but essentially building my own business in finance as an entrepreneur, which is awesome. It's a lot of fun. Long hours, hard work, but I enjoy it. And then I'm also a speaker, and companies, sports teams, events bring me in to talk about my story, and that's a lot of fun as well.
And when did you know or think you knew that being financial advisor, getting into that line of work was something that interested you? Did you know that going in? Was your father in that? Where did it come from, or mother, for that matter?
I was interested in finance, and I wanted to find the right fit. And there's lots of different areas of finance, and I wanted something that was relationship focused, and I could help others, and wasn't necessarily just sitting in front of a computer for 14 hours a day. And that's what drew me to it.
And I know that when we talked, you had mentioned, just how satisfying it is to help people with their financial futures. That was something you spoke more passionately about that when we were talking than you did about. It seemed like to me that, some of the other things, even though you do have these, that you're probably passionate about all the things you're doing, but it really came across as, something that you love doing.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love everything I'm doing between that and speaking. I probably don't sound as passionate right now just because I have to be very careful of what I say, regardless with that on podcasts and interviews. But I love that. I love speaking. I love everything I do. It's all focused on, making the impact on others, building two different businesses at the same time. It's really fun and exciting, and it's a lot of work, but it's fun. I do everything 100%. And if I ever lost passion in either one of those areas, then I'd stop doing it. Or if, if the opportunity came to do something else great that I wanted to instead, then I would do that as well. It's about building businesses and impacting others. And that's what I like doing. So.
And when was it that the idea of being a speaker, presenter, or whether you call yourself motivational or whatever, however you define yourself, how did that come about? Was it something that how did it come about?
Yeah, I mean, I had done a lot of speaking in college and high school because of my story. And it was just something where I wanted to do something else. I wanted to impact more people, and I wanted to, turn it into another business as well. And I just decided that it would be a good fit. I had a lot of experience. I could not only help a ton of people, but make it a business, like I said. And it's been a lot of fun. I've loved every second of it. It's still growing, still getting better, still learning every single day. And there's a lot to accomplish and a lot to learn, but it's been a lot of fun.
So it's fascinating to me that at, someone how old are you? 26?
24.
24. Okay. So 24 years old, and you've got these accomplishments on the field that you've spoken a lot about, but you're also, while you're going through college and you're talking to people, so you're getting comfortable. And then, you actually start, being I guess I could call you a professional, right? You get paid.
Yeah.
So what, I guess, congratulations on that, by the way.
Thanks.
But I'm thinking, like, with all the rigor and training and everything you've already talked about, and, getting into, becoming the best long snapper you could in particular, what about your speaking and your presenting? Because there's all kinds of resources out there to help people be better at that. And I'm asking because so many of us, everyone has a great story. Almost everybody has a great story. It's not the same, of course, but there's great stories that can help people, right? But so many people are, they're anxious, nervous. They don't feel like their story is good enough to tell, not worthy or whatever. And I'm just wondering, and it's a skill. It's not something you can just, most people can't just get up and off the cuff deliver, a keynote speech, for example. So how have you worked on it? How have you worked to get better?
I mean, it's about watching other people speak and learning from people that you think are different, really good speakers in different areas. You can't focus on one person and try and emulate them, because you'll never be the person that you try and emulate. But if you learn from 7 different people instead of one, then you can find your area, your skills. Another thing I'd like to say is there really are 2 different types of speakers, and it's the speakers who are really good at speaking and don't understand the business, and people who are not that great at speaking and really understand the business. And there's a lot of speakers out there who just really understand the business, but maybe aren't the best speakers, but they understand the business side of it. And that's totally fine. That's what they're good at. And they'll become better speakers as they go on. I think, I'm still in the process of both. I'm not the top speaker in the world. I'm also not the top business person in the world. And sooner or later, both of those areas will click, and I'll be, booked every week speaking, and that's going to be amazing. But I think it's a process to learn both of them. And some people learn to be really good speakers sooner, and some people learn to be really good at the business side of getting themselves booked sooner. And it's rare that someone finds out how to do both really quickly. It's you tend to learn one first and then the other after. And, it's really a process.
Okay. And so, as someone who will admit that they're not the best speaker, nor do they know the business side of it, what does that actually mean, the business side?
For me, it's a lot of outreach. It's the same thing as any other business model. It's contacting the people who are in the right positions to hire you to come in, whether that be sports teams, whether that be companies, whether that be events. Yes, some people do reach out to me, and that's always amazing. But a lot of it is me reaching out to others. And, hopefully in 3 years from now, 4 years from now, I won't have to do any outreach at all. I mean, obviously I'll probably still do some for places I want to, but the goal is that tons of people are reaching out to me all the time, and I get to just select where I want to speak. I don't need to deal with the development of it, because my name is so large and so many people want me to speak.
Okay. And what is, are you represented by a speakers bureau, or are you doing everything on your own? What is?
I'm not. To be completely honest, I never really got the allure of it, and maybe I'll look into it more later. From my understanding, and I could be wrong, they don't really help you get booked. All they do is they list you on their site, and if someone's looking for a speaker, they can click on you, and then they take a fee from it. I think you probably have to pay to be on it as well. And then that's not bad necessarily. And maybe down the road I'll do it. But for me, it's just, I think you will get more booked if you just do the direct outreach yourself.
Okay. And when you're up there talking to people, I'm assuming because of what you said, you feel very comfortable doing that. Again, a lot of people don't feel comfortable doing it for whatever reason, but you feel comfortable doing it. And what is the thing? So I've seen a lot of speakers. I'm 30 years older than you, so I've seen a ton, and I get what you mean about good speakers, bad speaker, or not bad, good speakers and great speakers. I don't know the business side, but I guess the one thing I always wonder when I see a speaker is what am I supposed to take away? How's my life better as a result of having seen and listened to this person? So, how do you approach your talks? And if you approach it that way, what is it that I come away with, or anyone comes away with when they see you?
I think just certain key things and whatever I tailor my speech to. I mean, usually I talk about leadership, overcoming obstacles, turning your disadvantage into your advantage, and that, anything is possible. And coming away with certain lessons from that. To go back to your point of the difference between good and great speakers, this is something that I took away from listening to, Ed Milet. And I heard a video where he said, average speakers are those who get energy from the audience and the audience gives them energy and they speak with it. Good speakers are speakers who put the energy into the audience, and truly great top speakers take their energy and put it into each individual person in the room. And I am by no means there yet. That's definitely one of my goals down the road. I think that I am good enough to put energy into the room. I hope I am, but being a person who can put energy into each individual person is something that is rare and very unique and very few people can do. And I will get there down the road if I keep working on it, but it's not something that I can do at the moment. And I'm sure most people can't do at the moment.
How will you, so that's very interesting. How will, and maybe Ed Milet, you said, right? Maybe he explained this to you, but how do you know? First of all, and then I wonder to myself, so how do you know if you're putting energy into everybody? And then also, does that mean that what does that mean, that your energy level is high and so everyone's will grab a piece of it? Or what does it actually mean? Because
it's something that maybe I don't fully understand as well either, but
yeah, okay.
I think there's a feeling that you get when you truly listen to incredible speakers. And if you listen to an average speaker, you just say, oh, that was good, okay, but you don't feel anything. When you're a good speaker, the audience feels something. You can tell that they're reacting well, and you can tell the energy that you're putting into the crowd. And when you're a truly great speaker, if you're sitting in the audience, you feel it. You feel it in your stomach. You feel it in your heart. You feel it in your every ounce of your body that they are impacting you by their words.
So it's kind of like, as you were talking there, I was kind of thinking like a concert, right? So you go to see a band you like, or maybe it's one you never heard of, but you, let's just say it's one you like. And this same thing applies to a speaker, right? So I know everybody tailors their speeches, but oftentimes they're giving a similar speech over and over because that's what they're talking about. So for them or for the band that's playing, it could easily get repetitious to give the same message. But the goal is to give the speech or the talk as if it's the very first time you gave it. Am I on the right track there?
Yeah, okay. No, absolutely. I think that's definitely it. And it's probably different for everyone as well, but I would agree with that.
Okay. And you mentioned Ed Milet, and I think you said earlier there were maybe 7 people that you sort of studied or who influenced you. And I'm not going to ask you for all of them, but just to give people a sense of the type of people that inspire you, besides Ed, who are a couple that have done that with you?
Yeah. When I look at who I think are some of the best speakers in the world that I try and watch their videos of to improve, people like an Ed Milet, people like Tony Robbins, a Les Brown, a Tim Story, people like that who all have different styles and abilities, but you can learn different things from each one of them.
Okay, got it. Thank you for that. You mentioned your dad sort of working with you in the, before school started, 5 a.m. or whatever it was.
Hmm.
Who else along the way in high school or college or even now in your speaking career, let's stay out of the finance career, in your speaking career, who are some of the people that have, you had an amazing will to succeed. You explained that very well, and I believe it. You were very believable, but everybody needs help.
Hmm.
Your dad gave you help. Who are some of the other people that gave you help, particularly help when you really needed it? It's because even if your
Yeah.
confidence level is really high, sometimes you get down.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun about finding the right mentors and finding people who will help me. In high school, it was a gentleman, Steve Burden, who his son played football with me, and they were really the only other two at the school every day at 5 a.m. with us. And Steve's entire family played Division I or professional sports, and I learned a lot from him, and still keep in touch with him. And today it's a learning from people in business and people who are further along than me, whether it be in finance and speaking and in entrepreneurship and studying what they do and finding people who are willing to teach me.
Has anyone approached you about making a Rudy-like movie about you and your experience?
At the moment, I'm in the process of actually writing my first book that will come out towards the end of the year. Not thinking of or focusing on a movie at the moment, maybe down the road, but I'm focusing on a book to start.
Tell us about your book.
It's just really the story of and the lessons of how I became the first legally blind Division I athlete to play in a game and what you can take away from that. And it's essentially a story of my life through that point, and really excited to get that out to the world and to have everyone see it and, continue to learn about my story.
Do you mind talking about your writing process and how the mechanics of that are going? So if it's going to come out by the end of the year, you're going to have it done pretty soon, I would think.
The goal is have it done during the summer, spend a month or so editing it, and then get it out there is
Okay.
kind of the goal.
Okay.
Who knows? I could be off on the timeline, but I'm kind of a just do it and figure it out type of person.
So what are the nuts and bolts? I mean, are you working with, a company that helps you with organization stuff? Or are you just, banging this thing out on your own, or I don't know what your process is.
No, at the process, I'm working with one other person to help me with writing it. And, we're looking for a couple avenues. There always is the avenue of self-publishing or going through a small publishing firm. And that's a possibility, because regardless of how you publish, you have to do a lot of the marketing on your own. And thankfully I have a lot of people on my team in place that can help me run, different types of ads to sell a lot of copies and get it out there. But, one of the goals, and we're going to start soon doing outreach to the big publishing firms to get someone who's interested in essentially buying in and becoming on board with it. And so we'll see. I mean, that's the hope. That's the goal. It's very hard to do on your first book unless you're, a top tier celebrity or someone of that stature.
Sure.
It generally doesn't happen until maybe your third book, where a publishing house will pay you up front to write a book. But we'll see. That just because it's hard doesn't mean I'm not going to try and do it.
Yeah. And your story is different though than most. You've got a a documented story, where maybe, you could even get an agent at this point. Like most authors aren't going to be able to get an agent on their first book, but maybe once you, as you keep moving forward, I would think, there's going to be a lot of attention around you and your book. That's for sure. But I'm glad you're writing it. I'm in the process of writing my book now too. I was just on a call before I got on with you about titles and subtitles, which is a very important part of the book's marketing process.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if you've gotten to that part yet, or you're going to wait till you get the book done for that. Either way, I guess works, but.
It's we've done some of it. We haven't had a firm decision on the actual title yet, but things will come into place more as more of it gets written.
Okay, so let's shift to your podcast if you don't mind. You every time I get a podcaster on, I say podcaster, that's just a small part of what you are, obviously, and probably every podcaster except maybe the biggest names, but What prompted you to start your podcast? How'd you get it off the ground, and what's your goal with it?
Yeah, I think, first off, I'll answer the whole how do I get it off the ground question. I think it's so funny when people ask, how do you get it off the ground? You start. You hit record and you start. That's how you get it off the ground. It's that simple. There's no fancy tricks. You record and you post. That's how you get it off the ground. I started it because I was going on a lot of others and figured why not use it to A, share other people's stories, and B, it's a great networking tool. And I've been able to connect with a lot of people that I wouldn't have been able to connect with otherwise if it weren't for the personal brand that I've been able to build. And these are a lot of people that things in business may come from it down the road. They may not come from it down the road. But I have a lot of very high value connections that I've built through it that, like I said, may or may not lead to anything. But the fact that I have a lot of the people that I've had on my podcast in my network is truly incredible. And that's what I'm really thankful for. And that's what I'm going to continue to do with it. It's really about sharing other stories and networking. And when I can do those two, it's amazing.
And I appreciate you saying start to the answer to what probably wasn't a great question. How do you get it off the ground? Start. Well, duh. Yeah, that's easy. Easy answer. I'm glad you made it so simple of an answer. So what are you, when you're talking to someone, what's your goal? What's the message you're trying to accomplish with your show?
Yeah. It's about sharing their story of overcoming obstacles, of accomplishing their goals, and, learning about them. It's really all about them. Podcasting is the best networking tool you can ever find because it's all about learning about the other person. If you and I go to, lunch and I just ask you a ton of questions about yourself the entire time, you're going to leave that lunch and you're going to say, wow, I really like Aaron. You didn't learn anything about me, but you like me because I asked tons of questions about you. Now, if we go to lunch and I just talk about myself the entire time, you're going to come away being like, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Aaron, because he didn't shut up the whole time. And it's the same thing with podcasting. I'm going to walk away from this podcast being like, I really like Mike. Why do I really like Mike? I talked the entire time about myself. Obviously, that's what everyone thinks. And when you can do that with a podcast, with connecting with the people you want to connect to, they're going to like you to a certain degree because you're putting their story out there. You're sharing them with more people, and they're essentially just talking the entire time.
So thank you for that. So I keep track of that actually, because on my transcription it tells me how much I talked versus how much the other person talked. So normally it's like 70 to 75, 30, 25. And it'd probably be that way. But I'm glad you Hobie Wedler. So I had Hobie on my podcast a while ago.
Oh, wow.
And I noticed that you had him on recently. How did you connect with him? And so Hobie is blind, but he's I think he's been blind his whole life.
I think so, yes.
Like totally blind, right? I don't think he can see anything. But he's developed this amazing ability to be I don't know if a sommelier is the right word, but he's a wine expert. And just by smelling and whatever, he's got all these different foods and stuff, all these different things that he's doing in addition to being a doctorate in chemistry or something. I mean, the guy's incredible. But I'm curious what you took away from your conversation with him.
Yeah, we really just clicked. We have very similar personalities, and I really enjoyed speaking with him. He's done a lot of great things, and he's going to continue to do great things. And we really just hit it off from the first time we chatted. We're probably going to talk again this week or next. We've been going back and forth and each having trouble with our schedules because we've both been pretty busy. But he's fantastic.
Yeah, I enjoyed him a lot. He was a very, just for so accomplished of a person, he's so grateful and down to earth and just, I don't know, just a fun person and a nice person to be around. And I love the name of your podcast too, Blind Ambition. Did it take you, I know I'm going to try to ask you a harder question than how'd you get it off the ground? Did it take you a while to come up with that name, or was it something that just like, boom?
My friend who helps me with a lot of stuff, he's huge in the growth marketing, digital marketing space, and has built several companies. I can't look for the name for me. He was the one who was behind that. He's very creative, and that was his idea, and a lot of credit to him for that.
Okay. Well, it's a brilliant idea, and it's perfect. It seems perfect for your show, and at least from what I've heard about it, and I really do. I really do like what you're doing. So congratulations on that as well.
Thank you.
So as you look forward, Aaron, what you got your book underway. You mentioned that you want to be speaking every week or more frequently. And building that organically through your network. You've got your podcast going. You've got this other career. What's this decision you made in high school, a choice to succeed as a 15-year-old. What's that look like now? What's your choice to,
Yeah. I think there's really two sides of it, and it's the finance side and the speaking side. On the finance side, I want to build a massive business and where I'm, it's creating a lot of revenue, but also helping a lot of people at the same time. On the speaking side, really same thing. I want to be one of the most well-known and sought after speakers in the world. And those are things that will come with time. Obviously there's not smaller, but there's other goals within there. Like I want to be a New York Times bestselling author. I want to, do a lot of things within that space, but they don't come overnight. They take time. It's a process. The two things that I have going on are both extremely hard and extremely time consuming. And, I could make a lot more money a lot quicker doing something else. But in the long term, I'm going to be a lot more successful doing the things that I'm doing because they take time, and anything good that you really need to build takes a lot of time. And because of that, it's not something where I'm going to be the next top speaker tomorrow, but in 10 years from now, there's a decent chance I will be.
But you make it building things, mental steps one at a time, I think builds you up stronger than going for, the money right out of the gate, because once you get it, if you do get it, you don't know why.
Absolutely.
You don't know why. Absolutely. And then you're really, and you've had, a very proven experience of, I know what I'm looking for right now, and I'm willing to put in the work, more work than anyone else is willing to do. And I think that's the way to build a business. That's the right way to build a business, in my opinion, whether it's, your finance business, whether it's your speaking business, your writing business, anything, podcast business, all of that is, building that step-by-step really builds the mental muscle,
I completely agree. It's, it takes time, and it's a process, and trust me, there's hard days because everyone wants the success now. Even I do. Some patience is something I've had to really work on. But you just have to understand that it will come with time. If you put in the work every single day, then you'll get the results sooner or later.
Well, I believe in you. I don't think there's any question that that's going to happen on whatever level you want it to happen on, and in whatever way.
Thank you.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Well, Aaron, how do you want people to connect with you? What's the best way for people to get a hold of you, talk to you, whatever?
Yeah, my website's aarongolub.com. You can go check that out. My podcast is linked on there as well. You can check me out on Instagram or Twitter at Aaron J. Golub, or LinkedIn, just Aaron Golub, and happy to connect and chat. And if I can help you in any way, shoot me a message, and I'll get back to you.
And you said Aaron J. Golub on Instagram and Twitter?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, Aaron, this has been a fantastic conversation. I really do appreciate you coming on and spending some time with me and my audience. And congratulations on where you are and where you've come from, and more than that, where you're going. It's just really
Thank you.
Inspirational, and I do appreciate the opportunity.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the How Did Happen podcast, where we believe that success doesn't happen unless you make it happen. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you like to listen. And while you're there, please rate it and leave a comment as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the show, ideas for future guests, or whatever you'd like to share. And of course, you can always find me at mikemalatesta.com. See you next time. Thanks again for listening to the How Did Happen podcast.